Over the Hills and Far Away, a fanfiction by Ian Flynn. Let us never forget what writer he started out as. We start out with us being told in the narration that Sonic was sitting in a lookout tower high above Knothole. So this has to be chronologically after Eggman found out where Knothole was in order to make sense with the Archie timeline, because otherwise, if there was a tower that high in a village that's trying to be kept a secret, Eggman would have already targeted it by now and tried to destroy it and thus be targeting Knothole by accident. So I hope for his sake that this is supposed to be taking place after Eggman discovered Knothole anyways, but even then that's such an obvious target. Is the lookout tower built right below the leaves of some trees to hide it from above? So it would only be able to look out over Knothole anyways, if it's below all of its trees. There's never any hint of a lookout tower in Knothole. Oh, wait, is this a reference to the Sad EM episode where Area was introduced? There was a lookout tower there, and Antoine was using it to protect Knothole. Well, that was stupid in Sad EM too. That tower would have been discovered by satellites, or Eggman sending his flying cameras from Robotropolis around the Great Forest, though the same would apply to Knothole. Anyways, of course I'm distracted into ranting about a plot hole in the first sentence of Flynn's fanfiction. We're told that there's a rotating duty schedule for the Freedom Fighters, which Sonic hates because it always led to him having a lame job, like being the lookout for the day. Again, that's stupid. That just makes Sally look like an idiotic leader for wasting Sonic's talents on a job that's better suited to literally anyone else, including non-Freedom Fighters. Though there's tons of examples of Sad EM Sally being a bad leader as it is, what with her not firing Antoine. And it's implied that Sonic really couldn't get away with not doing his duty with the lookout, no matter how boring it is to him. But yeah, already we're starting out on a bad note. Well, at least it's in character for Sonic to be pining for action, like he actually wants to spite robots. He's even happy that Sally's calling him because he's hoping it means there's going to be some action. Now I'm enjoying myself more. Sonic is down the ladder in a single fluid motion, because he does everything fast, not just run, which includes climbing down ladders apparently. I wish SE1 understood that. Sonic has a laid-back pose, and is smug getting Sally to say that she needs him more than once, relishing in the fact that he's needed while Sally's unhappy to admit it. I like this, especially since if Scourge was a hero, a good motivator for him to stay one is if he really feels like he's needed. Because what better way to feel appreciated for the first time ever by people? So I'm not holding this against Sonic. He sighs all satisfied, and Sally tells him that Rotor's picked up signs of a new zone. So, which zone type? This would be Sad EM due to the lookout tower. And they never mention what zone means in Sad EM. Universe or region of the world? It has to mean universe in this case, because otherwise how would Rotor only just now discover region of Mobius that's in the general area they always live in? So Rotor discovered a new universe that popped up out of nowhere. It's certainly going to be fascinating for me to see how a writer who hates Sad EM so much that he bans you from being a member of his own forum if you're a part of a Sad EM forum would write an episode of Sad EM. I'm really fascinated by this. And to be fair, I have read a lot of fanfiction that's much worse than this so far. Mainly when I was trying to find good Cosmo and Tails fanfictions, and only found 2 on the first page. Aside from the fanfiction not being formatted for paragraphs properly, like seriously, why are there paragraphs consisting of just one line? Aside from that nitpick, there's really nothing atrocious and immediately off-putting about the story right now. Nothing that'd make me immediately stop reading if this wasn't a fanfiction I was reviewing by Flynn. So far, this is an above-average fanfiction. Not that it means much. Well, we'll see how things go. I mean, I've heard of a particularly infamous fanfiction by him, and I don't know if this is it or not. Sally says she's put a team together to investigate the new zone portal that conveniently popped up for no reason. I mean, it's not like an emerald split in half. And she wants Sonic there, and is entertainingly smug about how naturally she wants him on the team, with Sally being annoyed and justifying herself. She says that Robotnik's been really hard on the team the past 2 months. Oh, of course Flynn had to mention that against the Sad EM Freedom Fighters. I wish I knew what she meant exactly. Aside from their usual incompetence, where they're always in a stalemate with Robotnik. I don't know what everyone has been rubbed a little threadbare even means. Well, at least there's no spelling or grammar mistakes so far. She says that her fuse is extra short right now. Really? I didn't notice a difference. She's Sadie M. Sally and all her arguing with Sonicness. She tells Sonic to lay off the macho bit, and Sonic is surprised with her. And the narration tries to have us believe that it would be out of character for this Sally to get a chip on her shoulder. True, she usually blows him off with quick quips or playful indirectness, but this seems like pretty normal Sadie M. Sally to me. She's tired of Sonic's smugness and tells him to stop with it. Sonic sneers at her and says, "I didn't know I'd been dropped down to grunt." This isn't about your ego, Sonic. Why do you think it is? Sally literally just said that she's just mad because the team's ineffective, and Sonic's taking it personally like she's just demeaning him. For some reason, Sally accuses him of starting something he can't finish. Why? Anyways, Bunny calls out to them, with them both asking her what is it in annoyed tones, and Bunny acts as the mediator for once, saying that while they're in a bad mood, they need to stop arguing. I wish that Bunny was always like this for Sonic and Sally. It actually makes sense that while she's not the brains of the team in terms of making plans or smart decisions, her intelligence is in the emotional sense where she's good with people. I noticed this when she said in Season 3 of Sadie M that Sally's particularly gung-ho about getting the Chaos Emerald, and she's worried about her being so serious. It makes sense that one of Sonic's friends would feel the need to be the mediator between Sally and Sonic to stop their arguing, because it's always wasting time. And I wish Sadie M did that. Normally Sally's the mediator, but who's gonna mediate her? That's where Bunny comes in. Sally at least apologizes to Sonic. Sonic says to forget it, brushing by her. And I guess by fire leapt in Sally's eyes, I'm supposed to take that as she blushed? It sounds more like she got furious, but she didn't. I mean, she didn't yell at him. Sally tells Sonic to get a day pack ready, and Sonic lampshades this because he could get them there and back really quickly. And she doesn't even try to explain herself by saying that she's worried the portal could close on them when they're in there and they'd have to take a day to get back home. Or saying that they're probably going to be in the new zone for a whole day exploring it. I guess the reason they want to explore it is to make sure there's nobody there planning on sending an army to Mobius to invade it, like the humans tried to in Fleetway. She did try to have a new zone investigated right away in the Sonic CD adaptation in Archie after all. So this idea isn't original of Flynn. Anyways, it's rather rude of Sally to just be a control freak instead of even trying to explain to Sonic why she wants a day pack. Although it could be that she's just that impatient, like I might be, but the narration doesn't say that. That isn't character for Sally, though. Sonic is frustrated with Sally because she was mad about Robotnik, and then he stops in his tracks for no reason at all instead of continuing to run to his destination. And the narration says that being intentionally rude to Sally isn't like Sonic either. So the writer realizes that he's writing him out of character, and didn't fix that in the story, and instead lampshaded it. I thought Sonic was being perfectly justified in being annoyed with Sally for telling him to stop being so confident, when confidence is necessary for him to cope with his life. Sonic wonders if Robotnik is getting to him, and Sally was right. I mean, it does make sense that the Freedom Fighters would eventually get stressed out about how they make no permanent progress against Eggman ever. It was overly saccharine that none of them did in the canon continuities. You'd expect them to be constantly deroboticizing people on a daily basis, and building more knotholes if need be, and that could give them constant victories just fine. But no, they had to introduce that rule that they can only deroboticize people with the same roboticizer that roboticized them, and they can't deroboticize people who are modified afterwards. I don't see why that makes sense. Why can't Rotor just modify them back so the robot bodies are shaped like organic ones again, and then the metal could be turned organic? Why would the chemical that turns robots organic be so picky about whether it's the original metal or not before working, when it wouldn't know if it's the original metal? It'd have the same chemical composition regardless of whether it's the original metal that used to be skin or a replacement part. Rotor could replace the replacement part with the same kind of metal as the rest of the body. That's dumb. There was no real excuse for the Freedom Fighters inside him and Archie to be so incompetent that they were never getting permanent victories for themselves. In a world with roboticization, you'd think the main plots would involve the heroes deroboticizing people, and getting the materials for deroboticizers. Anyways, Sonic vows to make up for his supposedly over-the-top rudeness to Sally by being civil for the rest of the day. Is that gonna last? Then there's a time skip to Sonic being with Sally, Rotor, and Tails, and they're all marching towards the new zone. Why isn't the word portal there? Or am I expected to believe the new zone completely warped to Mobius? In which case, that better be explained. The narration says that one unsatisfied look from Sally over Sonic's day packing has sent him off again. Oh, I misread that as set him off again at first, and was going to complain about how we didn't get to read his lines where he told her off. But instead, it's sent off, and we don't get to see Sonic's reaction to Sally. Sally probably had a good reason to be unsatisfied with Sonic's work though, because someone impatient and careless like Sonic wouldn't pack things right the first time. But Sonic had a good reason to be annoyed at having to go back and do it again. Rotor had played the mediator this time. Again, I love that we're being told the heroes are playing mediator between Sonic and Sally. They're not all just standing there doing nothing while they argue, like in the canon continuities. So that's one thing that Flynn shows he would have done better in SAT-AM. And apparently Rotor had been in a bad mood afterwards after being the mediator. Why? I wish I got to see that. This is why time skips are damaging to the narrative sometimes. It feels like Flynn was too lazy to just write the argument between Sonic and Sally, when it's taking the exact same amount of effort for him to write that they had an argument in the past without telling us what they said. Instead of just detached narration referencing it, and wasting our time just as much. Tails had insisted that he go. You mean Rotor or Sonic? And Sonic was the only reason Tails had managed to get into the team. Oh right, because Tails has no respect in SAT-AM as a freedom fighter. But Tails was still bitter about how much debate it had taken. What, a debate over the fact that Sonic didn't pack enough stuff? Why are they leaving the packing to Sonic? Wouldn't it be common sense to have someone more careful do the packing? Sonic could carry that person to the packing materials and make them do it. And this is sarcastically called a PG Keen mission as a result. But the mission hasn't even started yet. The heroes go up to the zone's outer wall, and while it should be visible according to the narration, all they saw were more trees that extended eternally throughout the forest, and Sonic asks where it is. So they can't see the zone portal. Why is Sonic being glared at harshly for asking where the zone is by not only Sally, but also Rotor? Rotor's not an awful jerk. Rotor's not someone who's super impatient with Sonic. Though I did think him being annoyed with Sonic and SAT-AM gave some life to his character, but not being annoyed for no reason. Sonic was expressing everyone's sentiments. That's why I found Sonic's line here cathartic. Well, excuse me for breathing. Yeah, typical Flynn fare, where not only are main characters being idiots, but they're making me hate them as well. Sally asks Nicole if there's anything affecting her readings, and Nicole says her data gathering is working just fine, talking like a stereotypical boring computer just because that's how it was in SAT-AM. That's some faithfulness I could do without. Also, her text is in all caps to really emphasize how mechanical she is. Tails is told that it's too dangerous for him to go into the zone when they don't even know where it is, let alone what's in there. So why did they bother agreeing to let Tails go with them here, if Sally was just gonna tell him no right when he was right up to the portal? She's flip-flopping, and Tails doesn't even lampshade this. Sonic says he'll go it alone, naturally since he's tired of Sally, and punches a hole through the zone wall to get there. And Sally was about to stop him from doing that because she had no faith in him as usual. You'd think someone smart would get that Sonic would always be fine because he's so fast. Anyways, after Sonic punches a hole through to the zone, the air seems to wobble and distort. How would people see that when air is invisible? And this somehow causes a section of the scenery to dance. Okay, so Sonic didn't go into the zone portal like I'd expect and get separated from his friends, and instead he just punched a hole through an arbitrary wall that was blocking its portal out of nowhere, so his friends could go follow him to the zone. That was overly convoluted. We couldn't have just had a portal they went through? That would have been faster paced instead of wasting our time with the zone wall padding that just confused me. The new zone was a giant, well-kept lawn, with constant tiny hills, flower beds everywhere, trees in random locations, and a mostly clear sky. Tails says with a grin, "Sorry Sonic, no pits, badniks, or death traps here." And Sonic sighs, "Figures." Again, that's good for giving Sonic character, emphasizing how he loves adventure and danger. so he's disappointed by the new zone looking even safer than Knothole. Rotor studies Nicole's magical readings of the planet, and is told that there's mostly flowers and trees. Wait, so on the entire planet, there's mostly just plants? That's interesting and unlikely sounding. He says he's getting only 2 structures here. Okay, so logically he has to be talking about just the small region of the planet they're in, because if the planet was really small enough to have only 2 structures ever, it'd have to be ridiculously tiny. And at that point, there'd be no gravity and atmosphere at all. There's 2 structures here. A giant pinwheel, proving their sentient life, and a place where the ground slopes downwards, creating a bowl where a large grassy dome sat. Sonic flops down the grass to take a nap, and Sally's annoyed with him about it. Even though there's clearly no danger, and he said to call him if they need him. But if they ever do need him, it'd take forever to run over to him if they're far away, so that'd be inconvenient to them. I don't blame Sonic for being bored. Oh, that's nice of her. Sally actually says, fine. And she and Rotor recklessly head for the dome without Sonic as a bodyguard. That's out of character for Sally. Isn't she supposed to be paranoidly cautious? Tails naturally whines, what about me? Wanting something to do as a freedom fighter. And he's told to go fly towards the windmill tower, excited to get a solo mission for once. It makes him the underdog that he's so excited to prove himself on his own. And it's smart of Sonic to briefly look over at where everyone's headed so he can make sure he knows where to run later on. Tails does one last flyby of the pinwheel, finding nothing new, and lands and pouts. The narration expects us to believe that the thing was on the very edge of the zone, and as a result, Tails had accidentally rejoined the outside world once or twice. Oh, because the zone portal wall is right up behind the windmill, I guess. It's probably not implying that the entire zone is that small, that Tails looped around the whole planet by accident. I mean, he's only staying near the pinwheel. The narration lampshades that the pinwheel has no entrances or exits somehow, and spins with no sign of a power source. Wouldn't its power source be the wind itself? But the no doors thing is weird, since Wind Waker's windmill didn't have that problem. That's one poorly built windmill. Unfortunately, Tails is smart enough to be aware that Sally knew there were no dangers to the windmill and nothing exciting about it, and that's the only reason why she sent him there. So he sits down, thinking the mission was no fun at all. Then all of a sudden, he hears someone say, Ayo, which is really nonsensical dialogue if it's not a literal alien language. What incentive would that person have to say that when it means nothing? Tails wonders why the alien saying that to him is hiding behind a pinwheel. And I'm wondering that too, since the person is clearly giggling. So it's not like they're scared of him. So they're just hiding from him to play a game, and pat things out instead of the two meeting right away. Tails is scared at first, and eventually gets frustrated how no matter how many times he tries to find the source of the voice, he can't find it because he keeps hiding for no reason. He turns and dashes in the opposite direction, and the alien jumps back, wheels in delight. The narration explains that the alien, which looks really odd to Tails, has a chubby and squat body covered in red fur and white palms and a white monkey-like face, and a circular antenna sprouting out from its head, and a gel-based monitor screen on its stomach. That's the weirdest thing. How the hell would it be gel-based if it's a monitor? But yeah, this is Flynn writing a Teletubbies and Sonic crossover. And I would have found this much more bizarre if I hadn't been spoiled on its existence before I read it. But it's still pretty weird to me even now. Well, let's see how this goes. Though I doubt it could be interesting if this creature still insists on not actually talking, and thus displaying a personality. Thus making it very pointless to have the heroes discover this dimension if no character interaction or conflict will happen. It seems to be building up to conflict with Sally and Rotor going off on their own though. And then we're told this alien is actually a girl based on the voice. Yeah, I'm just gonna call them aliens if that's okay with everybody, because technically that's what they are. Oh good, they are gonna have dialogue, even if it's in more simplistic English, because the alien doesn't say R when asking who Tails is. Tails smiles after introducing himself briefly because the creature seemed incapable of malice. Sure is lucky for him that he's never been bothered by Robotnik then. Tails asks a pretty stupid question by asking if this is really his zone, because 1, of course it is, and 2, how does he expect the alien to know what the term zone is? Also, it sure is lucky for Tails that Po even speaks English to him when he's from another planet entirely. But since Sonic's never needed a translator when zone hopping before, it must be that every parallel zone has English. But this is hardly a parallel zone. It's nothing like Mobius. Again, why is Tails asking if this place is his home? Of course it is. But I guess it's just small talk and he doesn't know how else to start a conversation. And Po immediately loves the word cool when Tails politely says it to her, and even hops around chanting the new word. And Tails laughs at the childishness that's just annoying me. Tails says he's hungry and is told they could go eat if they ride the alien scooter somewhere. Naturally, Tails is worried when the alien mispronounces the word scooter for a while, and I really hated the toilet humor of the fact that for no reason, scooter is pronounced with a P instead of an SE. That was dumb. Anyways, they go away on the scooter, and at least Tails is justified in trusting this stranger and going off with her since she's innocent seeming. Normally it'd be a horrible idea this. Stranger danger. It's annoying of the alien to chant ride it. Why do that? What's the point? They reach the base of the basin and the dome, where Tails goes through some automatically opening metal doors. Then on the opposite side of the dome, Rotor and Sally go down the gentle slope into the basin. I really hate that word. How is it supposed to be pronounced? And approach the grassy mound, noticing windows and doors. And Nicole somehow still certain that only plants are living here. So either her sensors are being messed with wirelessly somehow, or the alien creatures here are plants. They all go in past the automatically opening doors into the dome. At its center is a column covered in high-tech consoles. Again, what's a console? Other than the video game variety. The column's also covered in lights and compartments, and there's 4 tiny beds jutting out from one of the circular walls, and the end of a slide curling around the column to a hole in the top of the dome. Then there's really annoying dialogue, as from the other side of the dome, they hear a soft voice proclaim, "Tubby Toast." This is why I couldn't stand watching baby shows. And I'm glad the kid living with me in my house isn't so young that he's still watching those shows at this point, because I hated that condescending and unrealistic dialogue from them. I mean, how could anyone not think that name was stupid? Just call it Toast. I'm glad the writer is self-aware of how creepy the Teletubbies world would be to the Sonic characters at this point, because Nicole's like, sorry? And when Sally asks her in frustration why she couldn't detect the living thing here, she's like, I don't know why. Whatever it is, it just doesn't register. Sorry. So now she's talking like a human being. And she still has her text in all caps. This really does a good job of emphasizing how creepy the overly saccharineness of the setting is. Because even Sad-Am Nicole is scared. I mean, when these freedom fighters have grown up in the kind of world they grew up in, why wouldn't they be suspicious and creeped out at an overly saccharine and peaceful looking world? It's probably feeling like an alien planet with a really sinister secret just waiting to come out and kill them. Then we're told that Rotor closed Nicole. Wait, you can do that? And Sally attached Nicole to her boot. She can do that with her handheld form? Sally sighs that she might as well see if the life form's friendly, and they edge their way around the column, not noticing Tails and the alien coming down the slide. And Rotor and Sally slip around the brightly lit controls to spy a familiar individual seated at a low-sitting table. And Tails jumps out and scares his friends, and Rotor careens onto the table because they're so startled by him saying boo. At least his characterization is likable and spot on. And I always love when there's slapstick with Rotor. Sally pants and sees 2 more aliens giggle at their reaction, a green and brown one and a blue one. And both of them also have really stupid names. Who would name their kids Dipsy and Tinky Winky? This is why I'd never be able to stand a baby show. It's so condescending. It's such obvious meta logic that they named the characters cutesy names like that. Their parents clearly never thought ahead to how their kids would be treated. Either that or these are nicknames that the kids thought of themselves. But there's no signs of parents around to parent these childlike aliens. Not to mention no other normal kids around to have a social environment to have them grow up in and understand how to progress. With no parents around, how are they surviving? I guess the high-tech dome they're living in is automatically taking care of them while their parents are off at work. That wouldn't result in happy children. They'd be really lonely, have emotional issues, like Chris. Unless they were literally brainwashed to still be happy toddlers anyways. I used to have a toddler at my house, and he's nothing like this. He's not nearly as cheerful and innocent. Definitely not innocent, though he's a special case. But yeah, they'd have to be brainwashed to still be this happy without their parents around. The logic just isn't there. So I hope it is given, since there'd be no point in writing this fanfiction otherwise, if they're not doing anything to explain things better when the show wouldn't. Because what's the point if you're just going to write it like a typical terrible episode? Sally can't help but grin because the aliens clearly mean no harm, and she laughs too. It was sweet of Tails to call her Aunt Sally. It makes me miss that this isn't the case in Archie for the most part. Sally gets told how Tails got here, and all these aliens say their names and say the word "I'm" right before them. Oh, now I get it. These aliens talk with a southern accent. So when the first one said "I'm," it wasn't actually a part of her name. It was actually "I'm." Why did the writer insist on writing out the accent just like Archie did? That's just needlessly confusing when introducing the name of a new character. Just say that they have a specific accent in the narration and leave it at that. That's what I do. Anyways, the alien named Poe rolled in an oversized toaster earlier. They all sit at the table together, and Tails is elated that he's being asked something as the expert of a subject for once. No wonder he became a genius later. It's easiest for him to get a talent and gimmick in the group as the weaker, younger one, if that talent is specialist in knowledge. Because all he has to do is read books to get that knowledge. Everyone's surprised and entertained that the aliens make bike horn sounds when they land on their bottoms. Again, this sounds like it was just put in the show for the dumb meta-logic reason of, oh, it'll entertain the dumb kids watching this. Because logically, why would an alien species end up evolving so that they make this sound every time they land? That's not advantageous. In fact, how would they lie down to go to sleep all night? Would the sound just not constantly play when they're lying down? They'd have to have been genetically engineered to be that way. Or be robots with organic stuff on the outside only. And that would explain why Nicole didn't detect life forms on this planet. Still, she should have been able to detect robots first and foremost. Poe then asked where someone named Lala is. Again, that's a dumb sounding name. And this time it's because it sounds like someone singing without real lyrics. It's condescending. And this is why Flynn probably should have done a crossover with a baby show franchise, because franchises like that are guaranteed to be annoying to cynical adults. Sally giggles and has a good idea, and decides to prank Sonic by startling him by introducing him to one of the aliens. He says boo and startles him. Sonic runs into the dome super fast, and finally we get to see the snarky audience sort of get lampshade these overly cheerful aliens instead of simply being amused by them. As Sonic takes one look at them and lies his head on the table with a sigh and asks, what have I gotten myself into this time? Yeah, suddenly having to deal with swap bots and Robians all the time doesn't look so bad. The alien named Lala sits next to Sonic, still giggling at his scared reaction at first. And Sonic says, hi, waving weakly. I love how awkward he is about it. At least Flynn is self-aware of how weird this is, and Sonic's behavior is lampshading it, as he's reacting just like anyone else would. The narration says that Lala proceeds to greet her friends individually and by name, and each one replies in a similar fashion. At least the narration realizes that it's tedious, to say the least. But it's still impossible for me to swallow that these guys won't get sick of this overly slow greeting and never do it again after the first time, no matter how young they are. If anything, youngsters are more impatient. And at least Flynn had the sense to skip past all that dialogue and only reference it briefly. So far, this seems to just be taking the bad writing of the show and putting in a fanfiction pointlessly, instead of at least trying to make these aliens not as annoying. The aliens get all excited about the idea of getting toast, and waste time mentioning it multiple times. And Sonic wonders why the entire scene is being perceived as entertaining to his friends rather than annoying as he felt. So are his friends being brainwashed? Why isn't he being brainwashed then? Why is he magically immune? Or is it just dumb and there is no explanation? To be fair, Sally did say earlier that she was weary and tired of her depressing failures against Eggman. So she's easily cheered up by these overly happy aliens, because at least it's not as grim as her normal life. You'd think she'd just be jealous of them, though, and Sonic's bored by peaceful worlds. Po punches in a large red button, hurries over to the others taking her seat, and a vertical row of lights hums to lights, starting with the bottom and reaching the top. Then the aliens lean forwards expectantly, and then groan in dismay when the lights die away and they don't get toast at all for no apparent reason. Rotor inspects the machine, and to add to the creepiness factor of these guys, he reveals that he can't find any access panel in the machine because it's far more high-tech than anything he's come across. And Sonic lampshades that these aliens shouldn't be smart enough to operate such technology. Sally and Tails tell him to be nice, with good reasons at least, since Tails says that the aliens are being nice to them, and Sally's just being cautious. After all, what if offending them brings out a hidden dark side to them? Rotor presses the large button again, and Sonic does the same thing to no avail. Muttering, Sonic delivers a swift kick to the device. And I don't blame him for wanting to relieve some stress after all this. Immediately, the lights blaze and smoke pours from the slit in the gadget's top, and Sonic goes back to his seat looking guilty. And for once, the aliens have realistic dialogue as they say, "Uh-oh, run away!" It makes sense that Sonic's super speed kick would damage the device and make it go haywire. The Freedom Fighters look at each other in alarm, but nobody reacted in time even though Sonic has super speed, somehow. With a screech, the machine fires flat, pancake-like pieces of toast. And there's a smiley face etched in the crust, and it keeps firing thousands of pieces of toast. What a horrible waste of bread! These guys are gonna starve at this rate. It's so arbitrary that the machine is like this. But maybe Sonic activated a defense mechanism of the machine, because it was programmed with the assumption that the only person who would kick it would be an evil alien invader trying to destroy the place. Everyone dives for cover. Sonic hears a sucking sound after hiding behind an odd blue machine, and it turns out the little blue machine is able to look quizzically at Sonic, and then look at the flying toast. And somehow the aliens are giggling at being pelted with toast, even though you'd think they'd be unhappy about it. Also, I was under the impression that the toast was being fired at such a high speed that it'd injure anyone it would come into contact with. What's the point otherwise? Is it not a defense mechanism? Eventually, the toast stops shooting, and everyone laughs at the toast's stupid name being uttered after a tense scene where the heroes thought they were all in danger. Tails brushes toast off Sonic's former hiding spot and is repaid with a quick vacuuming from his trunk, and yelps and flies back a few feet, fortunately instead of being sucked into it to a horrible result. The aliens fumble their way through the toast and reach a sentient vacuum, so I guess that's what the machine Sonic hid behind was. And the aliens all hug each other, and the feeling is infectious, as Sonic suddenly finds himself with an arm around Sally and playfully ruffling Tails' hair. That does make sense since they just thought they were in danger and want to relax. Rotor dives into the toast, the group laughs with him and begins to eat, and I wonder if they're going to only eat the toast that's on top of other toasts, because eating directly off the floor is a bad idea. Though in such a futuristic setting, maybe the floor is automatically cleaned all the time, doesn't have any germs. Then after a time skip, the heroes all wave to the aliens fondly and head back for the zone wall. Finally, they're going home after all that tedium. Though I am cynical, so I was jealous of how easily amused the aliens were, but I was mostly frustrated with how stupid them and their names were. I thought for sure that the entire dome was going to explode when Sonic made the toast fire a bunch, and that would have had really bad consequences, like forcing the aliens to go live in knothole since they have no home anymore. Anyways, the narration says that the heroes had spent the entire day eating toast and enjoying the simple but entertaining games. How are they eating toast for literally the entire day? Their appetites would be exhausted pretty quickly. Hopefully that's not what it means. Also, I just realized this can't be taking place during the morning, so they're having toast at a time other than breakfast. How is mere toast considered a filling, nutritious supper or lunch? I wouldn't even have that for breakfast. That's not a proper way to automatically feed them, so that's irresponsible parenting. Unless that toast was given vitamins so it would be nutritious enough. In which case it's surprising that it would even taste good. I'm frustrated that we barely got to see any of Sonic being annoyed with these aliens, and that the heroes weren't as creeped out as I thought they'd be. I expected Sally and Rotor to scream at them and run for the hills the second they see them, and that would be the end of their interaction. But somehow all the heroes stayed with and bothered to interact with such weird-looking aliens that would be terrifying to meet in real life. But I guess they're really into not judging by looks. Anyways, the heroes are heading for the zone wall to go home. The sun starts to set, and a series of pipe-shaped speakers appear from the ground, announcing that it's time for bedtime, though the dialogue insists on being super condescending baby talk instead of just saying that. Why does it have to say the word tubby at first? Doesn't that show realize that tubby is considered an insult towards fat people? Why does it constantly use it for a kids show then? As the heroes exited from the zone, they found the sky oddly light for the late afternoon. Oh, so somehow time passes differently between zones? I always hate that trope in fiction. It never made any sense. I wish they always just explained that it's not that the zones themselves have time pass differently, and it's more like the portal itself is a wormhole through both time and space. The problem is that literally every time Sonic has gone zone hopping, there's no indication that he warped through time as well as space. And in fact, the issue where he first met Scourge outright disproves that. So why would this be the case just with this zone? The heroes continue home to Knothole, and behind them, a football-shaped spy eye drops quietly through the zone's wall. Spy eye, is that what Robotnik's spy cameras are called? Well, to be fair, spy eye is just 2 syllables instead. But yeah, the camera goes into the innocent world's portal just like that. Ooh, are we gonna have satisfying revenge on the Teletubbies where Robotnik invades the place and roboticizes them all? Is that gonna be what tries to make up for all that tedium? That would make sense. But still, you'd think if Eggman was sending his cameras directly to the Great Forest, logically he would have found Knothole way earlier then. The heroes return home and go their separate ways to unpack, with Sally returning to the hut she shares with Bunny. Oh yeah, she lives with Bunny in the pilot. I guess they're just that lonely. It's charming that Bunny says howdy, and it turns out that out of nowhere she was just reading a book. Bunny? Reading a book? Well, that's out of character. Name one time she ever did that. Well, at least it's trying to make her smart, and it's refreshing for her for a change. But sadly, the writer's too lazy to tell us what book she's reading, and instead we're only told that it's fiction. That's a shame, but at least it's way more in character for Bunny to read fiction than non-fiction. I refuse to believe there would only be a few books in all of Knothole, though. They have so much materials already. They have the materials to make a bunch of straw huts and normal beds. So I'm sure they'd have a lot of books. Especially after 10 years. Anyways, Sally tells Bunny that while she was in the zone all day, she's not tired at all. How? Bunny says she couldn't have been gone all day, and Sally was only gone for 3 hours. Sally says that the walk to and from the zone was only an hour. Wait a minute, an hour? Why didn't Sonic just run up to the zone portal at the speed of sound carrying Sally, stop and put her down, and do the same for the rest of his friends? Sonic would never put up with walking for an hour straight. Also, at that point he would have run past where he was expected to go because he couldn't tell the zone portal where it was when they first reached it. But I guess Nicole would have told Sonic to stop and back it up because that's where she detected the portal. Anyways, Sally tries to think of a technical advantage to the zone's different time passage that she could use against Robotnik. Bunny says that if they grow crops there, they could get food sooner. Sally hugs her and says that's a great idea. Yeah, for once Bunny came up with a brilliant idea that won't backfire horribly this time. That's nice. I wish Flynn wrote her this smart in the actual comics, instead of making her even stupider. It'd make more sense if Sally came up with the idea by herself. Sally says that unfortunately, growing crops in the zone would mean that some of the freedom fighters would be out of the loop with the real world. Why does she say the real world? It's just as real to her. That's the writer thinking too meta, thinking of the show as just a TV show they got sucked into when it's not a TV show in universe. Anyway, she overthinks things and thinks there's so many variables for no reason, and worries that this would all backfire on her. Why? Why does she think they have to have freedom fighters be the ones growing the crops there? Why waste their time with stuff that any typical farmer could do? Once again, she's not being a good leader. Bunny says that being in the zone cheered Sally up, so they should let the more wary freedom fighters vacation there. Fine, as long as we don't have to see it. But again, I can't buy that the characters wouldn't just be annoyed and creeped out by those aliens, and would actually enjoy being around them for that long. Sure, they're harmless little kids, but they look so creepy, and they're clearly idiots. But their world's so grim dark that it kinda makes sense that the heroes would want a lighthearted break. Though who knows how long that would last now that Eggman's discovered the place. Logically, it's going to send robots there when the heroes aren't guarding the portal. Sally hugs Bunny and tells her to find Antoine and tell him to join them tomorrow when they go back. Why? Why does Sally insist on having Antoine around? He's not necessary for anything. And unrealistically, Sally leaves without even telling Bunny what the mission was like. Though never mind, it does make sense that she would think Bunny wouldn't believe her and want to have her discover the zone for herself. I just realized, why the hell didn't Bunny go there? Her friends were going to a mysterious new zone, where who knows what dangers would be in there. And Sally had Bunny just waste her talent sitting at home, while Tails got brought along instead? Though this is the same person who thinks Antoine would be worth bringing along. Because I guess she's just that dedicated to her futile attempts to make him man up. So maybe her stupidity was in character. There's a time skip, and we're told that the heroes walked through the forest earlier in the day than they had set out yesterday, so they'd be able to spend days in the new zone without missing much action on Mobius. First off, walked? They know where the portal is, so Sonic would just run to it in seconds, carrying Sally while his friends held on to each other. Sonic wouldn't just walk? And second, days? How irresponsible are these so-called freedom fighters that they'd waste days in there instead of fighting Robotnik? The narration tempts fate by asking what Robotnik could do in one day, even though in the pilot he tried to send an army of robots after Knothole. And now all the freedom fighters are going to that zone at once. So I hope Knothole has a military that's capable of defending it in their absence. But if it did, why did the heroes feel like they were needed to protect Knothole? And the narration at least lampshades that the heroes knew that even thinking, what could Robotnik do in one day? Tempting fate. But apparently going to spend days with the Teletubbies was too tempting not to try. This is so silly. Tails rushes into the portal, and just as quickly as he went in, he flies back out with a look of horror on his face. I'm glad Flynn bothered to foreshadow the twist that something will be wrong with the zone next time, by telling us that Robotnik's camera went into the zone. Tails says there's swap bots in the zone, and Sonic naturally says that Eggman's gone too far. After all, those aliens are like toddlers in personality. Even if they are annoying the audience to the point where I'm really glad this happened to them. Finally, the story's getting exciting again and racking the tension up. Antoine says that he's losing all of the kingdom and the freedom fighters to Robotnik's forces every day, and yet Sonic's getting upset over Eggman invading one zone. First off, how can such monumentally awful stuff happen to the good guys every day? All of the freedom fighters are alive and well, and how would the heroes know about the loss of freedom fighters outside their little group? And second, that's really surprisingly heartless of Antoine to say. Oh, who cares about Robotnik terrorizing the zone of innocent children? He terrorizes other people all the time. He is a hero, isn't he? You'd think the Team Coward would be just as horrified as Tails is. And somehow nobody's furiously calling Antoine out of this. And instead, Sonic trails off like he's seen as wrong. The heroes all enter the zone, and the ones already familiar with the place sigh in relief, because while swap bots have been stationed throughout the zone, none of it had been shot or burned down. Snibbly's in a hovering Egg-O-Matic supervising the project. So where did the term Egg-O-Matic come from? Is it just a game thing? Is he just being a stickler to the games again? Because I just call it the Eggmobile now, so it has to be more of a not games thing. Anyways, the heroes take advantage of the zone's numerous low hills to sneak around and quietly reach the central dome. Well, Sonic needs to constantly be with his friends as a bodyguard, so he can't just run ahead without them. And this is Sad AM, where apparently the swap bots are made of such super tough metal that Sonic can never destroy them with a spin dash. Apparently. So he can't just destroy every swap bot in minutes and be done with it. Still, Rotor's an idiot for not already making ray guns to destroy the swap bots. And Bunny should be able to beat them up with her super strength just fine. But the heroes really don't want to attract attention from Snibbly, I guess. They probably think that if one swap bot dies, he'll send out a distress signal. Or they might be spotted by other swap bots who would alert Snibbly. The heroes are willing to take the chance of being out in the open crossing the base end until they see a line of swap bots stationed through the strip of land between the dome and the hills. Sonic asks Sally what the plan is. If Flynn was a great writer, he'd just have Sonic destroy these swap bots with a spin dash in a couple seconds. Though it does make more logical sense that Sonic would just get injured from slamming into middle at high speed, and so he can't spin dash through robots. And it also makes sense that well, how would he have that many carbon nanotubes to make every swap bot out of them? After Sally wonders what to do, Antoine gets startled by one of the aliens showing up, squeals at seeing him, and has to be tackled by the group. Swap bots are fortunately written to notice instead of being deaf, and the alien hugs his newfound friends, with Sonic being nice enough to say he loves them when he's never said that to Tails since ADM. And not to mention he's wheezing at the fact that he's being hugged too tightly by someone he's calling big guy. He's obviously humoring him with parental instincts, but still. Somehow the alien takes way too long to understand the question of where his friends are, and finally points them out. Are they siblings or friends? Anyways, Rotor Lampshade's simply not capturing the aliens yet, and Antoine gives a good explanation that Eggman's waiting for the roboticizer. It would take time to make one here after all. But Antoine should know it's called a roboticizer at this point. He has no reason to say it wrong after all this time. Then the pinwheel starts spinning fast, and pink starbursts stream from them. And even though the alien's saying, uh-oh, for some reason he still laughs happily, and runs up to his siblings. The heroes catch up with them, and the aliens all watch the screens on their stomachs. And when the image of Robotnik shows up on it, the aliens are all curious, rather than screaming in fear from seeing a man with black and red eyes show up on their screens that shouldn't be there. That's unrealistic. Snivelly's voice whines from the screen asking what Robotnik wants, and the heroes notice that Snivelly's looking down at a screen on his Eggmobile's control panel. Sonic naturally asks how the aliens are picking up Eggman's communication signal, and fortunately Sally Lampshade that by talking about what's obviously going on right in front of her, she's missing the conversation. Robotnik asks if the inhabitants of the zone are still giving Snively trouble, and Snively says they're fully under control. Sally complains that they missed all the details when the communication ends, and she and Sonic really look like idiots for talking through the vital conversation earlier as a result. Now that's fortunate, the aliens actually are able to replay Eggman's message, when I thought it wasn't pre-recorded. So they're recording it as if they were playing a live message. They've got to be robots doing it subconsciously. But why would robots be toddlers? Why would robots be programmed to age naturally so that they'd start out as toddlers? That's inconvenient. Anyways, Robotnik says he's launching now and is going to show up here with a transportable swap-out factory and the prototype of the portable roboticizer. Portable roboticizer? I guess the roboticizing chemicals are really concentrated by a force field shaped like a laser beam, and that concentrates them into a shootable laser. But still, how could such a tiny thing as a portable roboticizer have the room for all those chemicals that it wouldn't run out in one shot? I hope Eggman means the Sonic Underground type of portable roboticizer, where it's the same size as a regular one, and it's just on wheels and still just as enclosed, because that makes way more sense. Sally says that they have the entire day to go prepare for Robotnik. Snively's voice rings through the zone, and he tells the heroes that he has their friends captive, and if they reveal themselves, he'll spare their lives for now. How did he know the heroes were in the zone? I guess a flying camera happened to spot them. But nobody's captured. The aliens are all right in front of the heroes perfectly fine. In order to keep the aliens safe, Sonic and Sally let themselves get marched into the dome by the SWAT-bots. This really is a sad EM story, because if Sonic could just destroy the SWAT-bots with a spin dash, then we wouldn't have a plot. That does keep the tension up and force the plot to be more creative than just beating robots. But it almost ruins the point of having Sonic around if his speed is only going to be good for running fast. At that point you have the Flash there. Then after a time skip, we see that Antoine and Bunny are getting met up with by Sonic and Sally after the door slid shut behind the last of the robots. And Sally asks how they found Antoine, who says that he sneezed, so that's why he and Bunny got noticed and are here. At least Antoine apologizes for sneezing earlier. Rotor asks Sally if she managed to find anything out. But, how'd she escape from her earlier situation, where the SWAT-bots were taking her and Sonic up by the arms and marching them into the dome? Now Sally's just fine, and is telling Bunny that she found out they have the rest of the day to escape and eliminate the SWATs. And apparently Bunny wasn't there when Eggman revealed his plan, because she's reacting to Sally telling her about it as if she's learning it for the first time. Sally says the guard's heavy outside, and even heavier now that Snively has them all trapped in the dome. She says they still need a diversion. Tails cheers up like he's got an idea, and again, Antoine's mangling of English is force. He wouldn't screw up saying point in time by saying time and point. He'd just say at the moment. Because in French, I think he'd just say au moment. Tails says that he was just giggling about how earlier an alien named Lala wanted another one of them to wear a tutu, and this gives Sonic an idea to use one of the aliens as a distraction to get a SWAT-bot to chase after him. Never mind that he'd easily be outran by the robot and just get roboticized. But I guess Sonic plans on saving him later. Nevertheless, Tails says it's a great idea, Though at least Rotor is worried. And Sally says they can't get to the alien anyways. Sonic finds an unguarded exit at the top of the slide around the central pillar. And at first I thought Sonic jumped super high out of the dome, but it's more like he had Tails climb up. Tails says that he had seen a face in the sun earlier. It then says never mind after Sonic's like, what? So at least that impossible oddity is finally at least addressed, but underwhelmingly. Tails then points out where the alien is. A robot from the base of the dome tells Sonic to stop and tries to shoot them with a blue laser, and then we're told they tore their way across the landscape and stopped with a screech when they reached the alien. It took a while for me to realize Flynn meant Sonic ran across a field outside the dome. Why is it so complicated? Tails scares the alien into running away by telling him to wear a skirt, calling it by what they mispronounce it as. And a bunch of SWAT-bots chase after them, with many of them naturally falling over from the hilly terrain. I do like that. It's a natural result of SWAT-bots interacting with the unique environment here. While the alien runs east through the zone, Sonic blasts off in the opposite direction, and Tails flies north, and the robots all fall over on each other, not knowing how to react. Somehow we're expected to believe the alien can nearly run as fast as Sonic. The SWAT-bots keep running into and shooting each other more than their targets. It's created that they're getting defeated by each other. And the Freedom Fighters had seen the chaos outside and made a break for it, which spreads the weak SWAT-bot force even thinner. In minutes, Snibbly ends up alone, and bangs on the control panel of his Eggmobile, tantruming about it. Sadly, Sally insists on keeping Tails grounded when I would have liked if Tails got to punch Snibbly. But no, Sally's too scared of the Eggmobile's defensive weapons. Fortunately for the heroes, Snibbly hasn't noticed them, doesn't hear them talking about how they should get him down from there. Sonic then goes to take advantage of another of the aliens to check its gun, the one with the T at the start of his name. At least the aliens are going to be useful to the heroes for once. Sonic swings the alien's handbag around by the handle super fast and launches it at the Eggmobile, which knocks Snibbly out of the Eggmobile, and he falls into the waiting arms of Bunny. Wouldn't falling into her metal arm injure him? There's no mention of that though. Sonic says that he could have sworn he heard someone complimenting him, and is told that it's just his ego again by Sally. Why is she so dedicated to putting him down every single time he shows any sign of confidence? That's not healthy for self-esteem. See, he deserves respect for saving the day right now. As Sonic goes to join his friends, he doesn't notice the flower bed wiggling happily, somehow, despite the lack of a breeze. So their flower is able to move to express emotion, like their Venus flytraps. That wouldn't happen unless they were literally able to move to eat flies. Sally still got no idea how to stop Eggman from landing in the zone. She's been an idiot a lot in this story. And Flynn somehow misspells Nicole. And Tails asks why Eggman would bring a swap-up factory here. And while it seemed like a stupid question, Rotor explains that Eggman could probably take advantage of the temporal difference it has with the real world, and turn out a year's worth of swap-bots in a few months over here, which would be much more efficient. Okay, but time doesn't pass that slowly in the zone. The heroes spent all day in the zone, somehow weren't tired by the end of it when they came home, and when they did come home, only a few hours had passed. So that means several hours to just 3 hours. It's only a few hours slower then. So Rotor has no idea what he's talking about, neither does Flynn, because Eggman wouldn't be churning out that many swap bots in the same amount of time. It'd be a few hours faster, that's all. Still useful though. And Bunny looks unsettled, and stupidly feels guilty about the fact that she wanted to take advantage of the zone for the Freedom Fighters earlier, just because Robotnik is also doing that. Even though Sonic even says that they wouldn't be making soldiers there, just growing crops. But somehow, Sonic and Sally think Bunny had a good point there. Sally says that Nicole's plan is to seal off the zone from the rest of Mobius. Well, that is a good plan in the sense that it'll keep the heroes from having to constantly protect the zone from Robotnik. But they should have just said that then. And why is Nicole being silent just now? Now suddenly Sally has to read her text off a screen to learn her plan? Anyways, Nicole, whose name is misspelled as Nichole again, has the plan that using the remains of the defeated robots in the Eggmobile could create a bomb that would blast the zone away into its own dimension. Wasn't it already its own dimension? Why would the bomb not just blow up like a bomb? This is Flynn's convoluted writing showing again. We could have just left it at make a device to keep the zone port away from Mobius, and left it at that because Rotor doesn't do anything genius, but apparently we have to believe that a bomb would do it. Eggman's hovercraft pilot tells him that the convenient scans, however they even work, are telling him about an explosion near the zone they're approaching, and the hovercraft begins to touch down, with the trees flying from their foundations from the blazing landing jets. But instead of passing through the zone portal, the craft lands on the ground, which caves in. Sirens blare and lights flash as Robotnik's jarred from his throne, and it turns out the zone, which is now inaccessible, had been just above one of the largest sinkholes on Mobius, which had claimed the entire Swapbot factory, smashing it flat. Eggman charges down the hallways into a storage room that was thrown to a 45-degree angle from the impact. And the portable roboticizer is at least called fragile to explain why it's shattered. And outside the crash site, we learn that Snively was tied to a tree by the heroes before leaving. Because I guess they couldn't risk him learning where Knothole was, and they would have woken up any minute. And they were too busy making the bomb, so they had to tie him up instead of imprisoning him in a dungeon. With that, the story ends with Tails being put to bed by Sally, who kisses him on the forehead and laughs at the stupid name of the toast. So that was the story. And of course, it was really weird that Ian Flynn made a crossover with that franchise full of things, since a little kids show like that is all about condescendingly stupid dialogue from the main characters, who are complete idiots past the point of believability, and have unbelievably dumb names. I'm glad Robotnik and Snively threatened their zone to give the plot some tension and excitement. I was worried that would never happen and the plot would just be about the heroes interacting with the aliens. It went from a Teletubbies episode, and not improving anything, to a Sad AM episode. And it started out as a Sad AM episode. I know the heroes have to deal with an overly depressing world back home, so it could make sense that they were finding the Tubbies' world to be a nice, lighthearted break. But still, it was confusing that Sonic was the only one who was exasperated and creeped out, and even then, only at first. And after that, he willingly spent all day with them playing games, just like the rest of his friends. And when the narration lampshaded that they were somehow enjoying themselves, I thought they were being brainwashed. The aliens were so creepy with being unnaturally happy and looking so alien that I spent the whole story waiting for a dark twist with them. I thought that when Sonic made the toast machine go haywire after arbitrarily didn't work, and then started firing the toast like crazy, I thought the whole dome would explode because of what Sonic did. But no, that'd be too dark. And when Robotnik's camera went into the zone, I assumed that the aliens would all be roboticized. But no, that'd be too dark and cathartic for us, even though I was actually rooting for that to happen to them. As I expected, none of the plot holes in the story ever got explained. The new zone portal showing up is never explained, making the whole plot seem arbitrary. I expected Sally and Rotor to run away screaming the minute they saw the aliens after all the time they spent fighting Eggman, and never waste all that time with them. But somehow they were amused by their antics and trusted them just fine. There's also no explanation about how these alien robots are still happy when their parents aren't around to raise them and they're just being raised automatically in a dome with a toast-making machine. Even then, even that explanation just makes me confused that such neglectful parenting would be legal. There's no explanation for why mere toast would be considered enough to sustain them. So what's the point of the crossover if Flynn wasn't going to explain stuff the show didn't? But on the bright side, the grammar was fine, there were only 2 spelling mistakes, and the plot had a proper structure where there was foreshadowing to a tense climax at the end, which is already all above average by fanfiction writing standards, regardless of the premise. The heroes not being able to simply destroy the Swapbots at least made the writing creative, as they had to think up a plan instead. The Swapbots all got destroyed because the heroes split up, and they went after them on hilly terrain. And they all ended up destroying each other in the process. Like the hills could be used for cover, and they could trip down the hills. At least 2 of the annoying aliens were useful, as one of them lured a Swapbot army away, and Sonic threw the handbag of the other one to knock over Snively, so he wouldn't be a threat, and the heroes could time to a tree instead, with the rope they somehow had. So at least the part of the plot where the zone was in danger was well written. It wasn't horrible, as long as the aliens were insisting on talking with their awful dialogue. But it was really stupid that instead of simply leaving it at Rotor seals the portal to the zone, like he seals it up with the remains of Swapbot parts, instead somehow I'm expected to believe a bomb sealed off the zone by blasting into another dimension, when I thought it already was its own separate dimension. Flynn just can't keep things simple. For example, Sonic had to punch a hole through the zone wall, instead of the heroes just walking in through a portal. And Sonic actually walked all the way to the portal, both times, instead of him running and getting there in seconds. Not to mention Sonic didn't just spin dash the robots, but that was faithful to Sad AM. Like the characterization in general was, aside from Bunny reading a book and coming up with a smart idea. I hate that the story was so long. It took me 3 or 4 hours to type this review out, and my hands were hurting by the halfway point. But yeah, that was Ian Flynn's first crossover. It's sad to say that I've experienced much worse stories by Flynn than this, like issue 224, where the Council of Acorns made Ixis the king, and issue 197, where Sally got court-martialed, and the story where Jeffrey joined Ixis, and issue 247. Those stories were just infuriating, especially since Jeffrey joining Ixis created 16 continuity errors because, oh, he was always working for him. I refuse to believe that.